for you playing a farmer in A Letter from Helga? Did you feel quite connected to the land?
I did, and I think Icelanders do in general. I think because we are so dependent on the land, and have been that throughout history. We for food and for survival and all that, and it's so we are very connected to it, and we're very aware of it. I think in general. However, like the modern man today, such as I, am not probably as connected as the farmers were back in the days. So I had to, really do some research on that. Really, unfortunately, the film itself is based on a great novel that I had read prior to getting this role, and I really loved that book, and which is written by Bergsson Birgisson, and I feel like that book gives a very solid and good insight into the mentality of a farmer in that time period. So I hope I did a decent job with it. I had played a farm hand before for the same director, Ása Helga, who casted me in this. In 2017, I did another film called The Swan, and in that film I played a farmhand, and there I had to go through the process of what it is like to work on a farm. So I went and worked on a farm. So I really I helped assisted with like giving birth to a calf, for example, 2 or 3 times. I milked cows. I really was working with the sheep. I was digging into the mud. I was doing the things that farmers do in order to survive, just to understand it, and also just to be believable in what I was doing in the film. So I did a lot of research. I hope I did a decent job, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Do you know the story that the Sting? There is a Netflix series about drugs, about LSD, and there is a story of Sting, how he was on his farm, and was on LSD, and he has to help for the cow to giving a birth while LSD, and he's talking about the experience. It's crazy.
Being on LSD doing it?
Yes.
Seriously? That must have been because
it's on Netflix.
Because it really is an incredible experience to be in that place where you're dragging out a calf out of a cow. It really just it's like when you see a life coming out like that, it's really, and you being also just like involved in the process, being there in the moment, it's really heightened and really fortunately I did it first with a farmer, because I had never done it before, and then I had to do it like in a scene in another film, and that was incredible also. So it was me and another actor, like a very experienced one, an actor I really enjoy working with, one of my idols when I was growing up, actually, Ingvar, and he was there. So he was more experienced in like farming and all that prior to that. So we were there together, taking that calf out. I had some support also, and he hopefully from me as well. But it was it's an amazing experience, and I couldn't imagine, like you said, like with Sting, doing that on LSAD. It probably would have been like a very, very, very heightened experience, I assume.
Absolutely. Like you are. You are established stage performer. I wanted to ask about a curious incident of the dog in the night and playing such a fantastic role in this play.
Well. Yes, I did a couple of years ago play the leading role in Curious Incident of a Dog in a Nighttime in Iceland, and in the Icelandic production of it. And that was, to be honest, one of the most rewarding theatrical experiences I've been through in my life, because it demanded a lot of research on the life of those who are on the Asperger, dealing with Asperger. And I worked with the Asperger Society in Iceland. I met people with Asperger and had a dialogue with them about how it is to move through the world, having that as a gift, also, and also as a struggle. And they explained that to me, and that was very. I also spoke with parents. I spoke with people that are, surrounded by, because they're also affected by it, and so it was truly a rewarding experience, and because I really wanted to do a decent job there, portraying that character. It's a very demanding play, but we had some great cast members. We had a great director and a stage designer and choreographer. So it was a very, very, very difficult process. And I remember, like, just the day before the premiere of the play, I had never, done the final monologue, which is like a monologue that was about, like, algebra. He was like writing things on the walls, and I thought, like, the director decided to skip it because, I didn't. Okay, so we've never done it before. And the day before the premiere, basically, he came up to me and said, "Now we need to do the final monologue." I said, "Seriously, are we doing the final monologue now? I mean, we have never done it before." And he said, "Yeah, now you're ready." Because because it's not about the end, right? It's about, like, the journey itself. So if you've done the work from, for the whole thing, then this should come out in the end. But I was a little bit too tight in the end. But it worked out, and it was a great experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey, you